You can't teach an old dog.
Because they're too old and they can't listen to you. Because they could be deaf.
When the going gets tough.
You get tougher.
Don't judge a book.
Yeah, because it's a book.
Don't put all of your eggs.
Oh. Yeah, because sometimes if you put all your eggs, you'll run out of them.
Out of sight, out of
knowing.
Two wrongs don't
Make it better.
A picture is worth
less than a person you love.
Oh, I like that. The best things in life are
family and pets.
Don't cry over
anything.
TBTL.
I consider myself to be an absolutely dead center, normal, average American.
Here's the 1-0. Swung on, there it goes. Deep left center. That ball is high. It is far. It is gone. But caught.
I'm not very good with chit-chat. I like a structured communication. I like a hard out. Chit, chat. Oh, chit. Where are we going with that?
Bee bop bop bada boo.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. This is a whole new level of nerd.
Well, all right. Hello, good morning, and welcome everyone to a Thursday edition of TBTL, the show that just might be too beautiful to live.
Cup of coffee in the big time.
My name is Luke Burbank. I'm your host.
Burbank, who is he?
Coming to you for the final day from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C.
W-A-S-H-I-N-G-T-O-N, baby, D.C.
It was, yesterday here in the, I guess we call it the DMV, right? The DMV, the District, Maryland, Virginia area. I was out in Maryland, and it was, not only was it raining sideways, but it was really cold. It was freezing cold, in fact, it felt, which is very strange at the end of May in this part of the world. It's usually warmer and muggier, and today it stopped raining, and it was, it's still kind of gray and cloudy, but it was an okay day for getting out and doing a little jog around the nation's capital. Weird time to be admiring the history and the grandeur of this country and the monuments in Washington, D.C. One moment you're jogging through Lafayette Park and you're listening to Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah, and you're feeling inspired by the dream of this country and what it could be, maybe. And then you look up and you see the White House and you're just like, oh, yikes, Jabba's lair. Mos Eisley's Space Court. Not great. Anyway, I'm working my way through that, putting that out of my mind and focusing here on the task at hand, which is episode 4,477 in a collector's series.
Let the fun begin.
Last night in Lansdowne, Maryland, I attended a genuine heavy metal rock and roll show.
Oh, hey, king of rock. You're out of your depth.
Not only did I see Metallica and Pantera, I also saw Suicidal Tendencies. And
I hate to say it, it was kind of cool.
To say it did not go the way I was expecting it to go. We can talk about that today. Also, it's a Thursday, a.k.a. Blur's Day, so,
My birthday today.
Do the Blur's Day messages. And we are going to talk to this guy, longest-running Cobro of the show, maybe best known for his depictions of the tall ship. Something you may not know about him, though.
This handsome young stranger.
He is a handsome young stranger / soulful rocker from New Hampshire. He's Andrew Walsh, and he's joining me right now. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Luke. You did me dirty. You did me real dirty in your intro, and I don't even think you realize it. I don't even think you realize it.
I did. It was very intentional.
You used a drop.
Whatever it was with malice and forethought.
That's what I thought. You used a drop that I found to be particularly triggering this morning. Cup of coffee in the big time.
Oh, no. Are you
I am without
Are you getting another
coffee.
colonoscopy, so you're not allowed to...
Cup of coffee in the big
don't double
time.
down. I need a cup of coffee so bad, and I don't have any coffee. I was out way too late last night. Did not prepare in advance the coffee at night the way I usually do, and then I rolled out of bed and rolled right into the shower, and then I rolled... Well, let's just picture it. I rolled out of bed, I rolled downstairs, I rolled into the shower, then I rolled into here, and I never rolled past the coffee maker to make some coffee, and so I am struggling, and I want to drink that drop. That's how much I need coffee right now.
A rolling Walsh gathers no coffee.
That is exactly right.
Okay, I have a million questions about this, and you're under no obligation to answer ones that are maybe too personal. First things, if you are having one of those mornings where you're not up at the crack of dawn, Genevieve does not make coffee in the home environment?
Sometimes she does. I don't know why not today, but it's usually just sort of in my purview. I enjoy doing it, and so it might have just been a miscommunication, and I didn't have time to really discuss it because, like I said, I rolled out of bed, rolled downstairs, rolled across the basement floor into the bathroom. That was tricky because it's a narrow door, and then rolled into the tub. Anyway, I never talked about it.
Okay, second question, because I had a sense, I know we're on a Operation Arozarena bobblehead yesterday. You were going to the Mariners game with our buddy Neil to get your hands on that sweet, sweet bobblehead and to see the Mariners suffer their worst loss of the season in terms of runs, I believe, surrendered.
Wasn't our fault. Was not our fault. Not my fault, not Neil's fault. Might have been George Kirby's fault.
But then, again, I know that being out at the game can be a part of a fun night of adventuring. Did you then end up at like Teddy's afterwards? What was what was the sort of contour? What was the shape of the night for you?
It ended up going to that bar near my house, the Vibe, because it turns out both of us needed to take the E line. I think Neil had a couple of options, an E line, a D line. We don't have to get into the details of his bus life, but he's like, oh, we can just take the E line together. I'm like, oh, that's good. And then I'm like, honestly, though, if we just got off one stop before my house, it literally, it literally drops you off at the steps that lead up, like those three little steps behind the bus stop that lead right to where your old haunt, the Mandarin Gate, was. Like, the bus stop should be called the Vibe Stop, although I understand why you wouldn't maybe call it that. So anyway, I was like, we could just get off at 100th and just go get ourselves maybe a drink or two, and that's what we did. And it was nice. We talked. We probably sat there for hours. I don't know if we didn't close the place, but we were there for quite some time. It was a great night. I mean, the score of the game was terrible. The game itself, though, we had these just great tickets, Luke, right behind the plate. Like we were 2 seats behind the Diamond Club, as they call it.
Oh, I was going to ask, were you in the Diamond Club? Because that is really farting through silk.
Yeah, no, and that's a whole thing. You go into it through a special underground tunnel, and then they have like... I don't know if you and I have talked about this. I don't know if I'm in the right place to talk about it right now, but I guess I got to talk about something. This is my job. They have this thing. I think most ballparks have this.
Do your job.
Do your goddamn job for once in your life, Walsh. I think, a lot. I would assume almost every ballpark has some, with the possible exception of the A's, has some version of the Diamond Club where you kind of go in and there's like all the hot dogs are free and all the ice cream you can eat, and it's like $700 a ticket or $600 a ticket or whatever. I think there
are servers that come out once you're seated. There's like you said, there's a whole buffet kind of style pre-meal thing, and then once you're seated, it's like you've got a personal attendant bringing you any kind of drink you could imagine.
Yeah, and there's a big bar inside, so you can get like a traditional style bar. You can have drinks ahead of time, and again, everything is I wouldn't say free. It comes with the price of the ticket. Also, when you say the tickets are like $600, I don't think anybody actually buys them. I think maybe people do, but I think they're all probably attached to some sort of a business, corporate
situation.
Account of some sort. And I know that the only reason I got in there was because a buddy had tickets through the radio station a while back. But all of that is to say, I did want to talk to you. You mentioned the buffet. Everybody mentions the buffet, right? Everybody's like, oh, you're going to the Diamond Club. Don't fill up in advance because you go in and before the game there's a buffet, and I don't want to sound, I don't know, ungrateful or even partially like classist about this or whatever, but it's like everybody makes such a big deal about this buffet, and it's like you go in and like, yeah, I guess it's kind of a nice-ish buffet if you were on maybe like a cruise ship or a mid-tier wedding or something. Like, and it's kind of like no offense to mid-tier weddings, but it's kind of like,
listen, as a person who's been married multiple times, I do take offense.
well, I mean, that's that's a good example right there. Like, I don't think that this is the kind of spread somebody like you with, kind of an eye toward the aesthetic would like have at your wedding, right? It's like very.
Can I answer that question very briefly?
Yeah. Did you have a carving station? I don't think you had a carving station.
No, I think food is one of the worst investments you can make at a wedding as the people getting married. My argument is people rarely remember the food from a wedding. I would say make sure there's plenty of alcohol and a really good DJ, and you schedule it in such a way that people kind of know they should probably eat something, because the food is an absolute budget killer. And unless you are, spending $1 million on the wedding, the food will just range from passable to average at most weddings. And I just that's as somebody who gets married about every 6 years, which I guess means I'm overdue. That's what I would say about that. But back to your point about the buffet, I couldn't agree more. The one time that I got to go there, I had the same thought, which was, this is all under a heat lamp. It's a lot of chicken strips and French fries and hot dogs, and these are certainly things that are tasty to eat.
Are there? See, I don't remember that. I feel like I would have been more into that. I remember it as being the kind of stuff that people were excited about. It's like, like I remember bacon wrapped dates and like a carving station under a red heat lamp, and like not even like, that's what I mean. It's not like a all you can eat, but it's ballpark food. Hey, there's some of that is available as well, but I'm talking about like the buffet part is like, it's like. To use the word elevated, I'd have to use it somewhat ironically there, but like it's not ballpark food. It's again like kind of like, hey, we're going to dinner on the cruise ship, and it's kind of like, well, I guess some people do, and I don't need to take that away from them, but everybody was talking about it, and I just remember sitting there being like, I don't want any of this. I want to go eat the free hot dogs during the game. That's more my, and I do think that it taps into something that you and I are very much on the same page with, and again, trying to have this conversation without sounding judgy, but the sort of the mentality or the psychology around free food at like an office place or something, like, hey, did you hear Debbie brought in donuts? And everybody like kind of gathers around, and it's like, oh my God, I thank God there are donuts. I could never afford these myself.
Right.
God forbid I could have gone myself and gotten donuts and picked out ones I liked, which sounds like I'm such an asshole here. But there's something about like free food that sort of like something switches in people's brains. It's like, I don't think you would be eating this except for the fact that somebody said it's free food.
And it seems to, there's probably something kind of primal about it, right? Which is we need to eat to stay alive. And there's something about, for a certain kind of person, I would say the majority of people, but for some reason not you and me, it's like this, there's something that's very, when you hear there is food and it is free, it's something you like, your brain jumps back, I don't know, 500,000 years in its evolutionary journey, and just because like you're on the Serengeti and someone just somebody left an antelope that had been freshly slaughtered out, and your inclination towards this antelope is part of why you will then have many, many generations of offspring who will survive long enough to work at Davis Wright Tremaine in Seattle and now be in a conference room where someone has brought in Dick's cheeseburgers.
And though I would say this too, as far as the sort of primal instinct, there's a nicer aspect of this as well, other than just survival, and it is the sort of community aspect. You were using the example of like primates or I think cave people. I don't know what you said there, but I also picture a Far Side cartoon where you have a whole bunch of predators. There are a lot of Far Side cartoons where you see like maybe 4 or 5.
It's really how you make meaning of your world, let's be honest.
The Far Side, yeah, exactly. Listen, I've said this a million times. The world fits into 4 Far Side categories.
Yep.
Quadrants. No, but the classic, like you see like maybe 3 or 4 lions all eating some sort of carcass, but it's not super grotesque, but then one of them says something awry to the other one. Can you sort of picture the style cartoon?
Absolutely.
I feel like that's what I'm picturing too, with like, hey, there's Dick's cheeseburgers, and they dump them all on the table. And again, this is very specific to your and my experience at Cairo a couple of times. And then people they come around, and then it's like about the food, but also it's kind of like, hey, it's a communal thing. That's how people catch up a little bit. Like there are, I believe, societal benefits to this too, that I'm just not personally interested in, but there's something good to be said there, and something equally primal, but maybe also more interesting there. I'm just sort of not particularly interested in it, or an interesting person maybe. So.
Speaking of social benefits, this is what I really want to talk about with you. It sounds like you are slowly but surely coming around on the bar that used to be the Mandarin Gate that is now known as the Vibe, because you actually went there voluntarily. Or is it the case that, to take it back to the Serengeti, it just happens to be the closest watering hole, so it is the one that you will drink at?
Well, it is both. It can be.
It is both.
It is both. I want to marry that guy. I've seen that commercial 100 times, and every time it makes me like kind of belly laugh. Like, I don't know why it's just so funny. A guy just screaming at the top of his lungs by himself, and somehow it's like mic'd really well. That's what's really funny about it, the way it's mic'd.
Yes.
No, it is both. The bar does have, it's developed its own little community, which I do like. I'm not saying I'm part of that community, but there are little pockets. I've already mentioned to you some people who were old Mandarin Gate regulars there are there, but then also it's just sort of, it's become like, I notice a lot of Spanish speaking people go there, and like I think almost all of the bartenders speak Spanish because of the clientele, which I think is kind of a cool thing, and it just sort of seems like a lot. Oh, and like there's this guy, I don't know if you would know him. I don't know if he's an old school regular in any kind of capacity in the North Seattle bar karaoke scene, but when I first started going there, when they were brand new, they had really like cheap food. They were buying it from like, I don't know, the stuff that Cisco rejected. Sort of something. They were serving chicken wings that were just like so weird. They're mostly bone and not prepared very well. And then over time, that sort of has shifted. And it's not, obviously, it's kind of a divey kind of sports bar. It's not like gourmet food, but they just dialed into what they can do. And what the situation there is now is they have this older guy who speaks primarily Spanish, but he also speaks English, and you order just some pub food or something, and then he walks out very slowly and kind of brings it to you, and he kind of puts his hand on your shoulder, and he like huge smile on his face, and he always like kind of asks you something personal or like kind of jokes about the food or something, and I noticed that like everybody's like, are you singing karaoke tonight? And like I happened to be in there the other night. I think it was
so they still have karaoke there.
They now have brought back karaoke, but the layout is so different. Okay. You wouldn't even recognize it as your old. It's not even like a holdover, but it's just a bar that does karaoke now, and it's kind of in this kind of across the way from the bar where I'm usually sitting. But it's like so great. Like I was there like last week at some point, and I was just there by myself reading my book, and people were singing terrible karaoke songs. But then there was this beautiful ballad, and I looked at the bartender. I'm like, "Is this the chef again?" He's like, "Yeah." Like everybody wants to know when he's singing. Like people come in.
Oh,
and
that's
just, like,
amazing.
He's like such a character, and so like there are these moments.
Life finds a way.
Yeah, so I do appreciate that bar. It's also like if it was right next door to Teddy's, you know what I mean? So imagine a Far Side cartoon, and there's me standing there.
Are we in?
And we're in the bottom right quadrant, I'm looking at two bars next to each other, and one says Teddy's and one says the Vibe, and I have to choose which one. I'm going into the Teddy's every single time.
Sure, of course.
And you're going to disappear for a moment here, Luke. I just noticed you have echo cancellation on. I'm turning this off, which means you're going to disappear for a second. Oh, I can't change that during the show. We might at break time have to turn echo cancellation off on you. I just heard you.
Now, can I do that from my end? No, can't be changed during the recording.
But anyway, so I do like both places in their own right, but Teddy's is my place. The Vibe is convenient, and also, like I said, literally, the city has declared that bus stop at 100th at Aurora and 100th, which was a conversation I was having with my buddy last night. I can say, I live on, 135th, 130th, 117th. Like, that all sounds normal to me. It's hard to say 100th and just leave it there. I live on 100th.
It's also tough because it's not a cross street. It runs into the back of SARS and then over by what used to be some kind of a sex shop. So you don't, when you mentally map Aurora, you're thinking of it in terms of 80th, 85th.
Yep, 95th.
90th maybe, and then 95th, and like anything where there's a stoplight and you can cross. Those are the streets that get all the publicity. Those are the hotshot streets. 100th is just kind of low keying back there, and
kind of non-existent. Yeah, exactly, or at least at that stop. But anyway, so that's why we went there, and we had a good time. We just, it was not a wild night. We didn't, we're not karaokeers or anything like that, but it was kind of a late night.
I also love the fact that our friend Neil speaks fluent Spanish, and so if he ever needed to relate to some of the Spanish-speaking folks, there also, I feel like I just think speaking two languages is a magic trick.
Yeah, I should.
So I'm so envious. I also get so deeply annoyed at Americans who don't speak another language outside of English, who have any criticism for people who are speaking English as their second language. It's just like, how's your Spanish, or how's your fill in the blank? But part of that too is just like, it's when I've heard Neil break into his absolutely flawless Spanish with anybody who that's their first language, it's just like I swoon. I swoon.
I always feel shame too. I always feel shame that I didn't.
And that's what I'm hoping you're feeling.
Yeah,
when Neil starts speaking Spanish.
Because I don't know that I've ever heard Neil speak Spanish, but I, generally speaking, I'm just like, yeah, to navigate this world, we should all, or like from somebody in my situation where I live, especially when I lived in LA too, like you should just know how to speak English and Spanish, and I just never did. And every year that passes, I'm like, someday I'll do that, and now I'm 48, going on 49.
But also, if you'd like to understand, and I don't need to explain this to you, Andrew, but for people out there wondering, if you'd like to understand the difference in the temperament and the wiring of me and our friend Neil, it is the fact that you've never heard Neil speak Spanish. And I think Spanish might be his first language. And Neil is so low-key about it. Could you imagine how insufferable I would be if I spoke great Spanish? I would never, ever let you forget it. It would be one of the critical things you knew about me from probably the first day we met.
Every show would begin with "Hola, hermano."
Yeah, exactly. ¿Qué tal, Andrew? Like, I would be insufferable. And Neil is he's a person who does not need to sort of try to, I don't know, wow you in whatever way that I would be trying. He's just like, yeah. Oh, yeah. I speak Spanish, dude. I grew up in Mexico for a significant part of my life. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, well, it didn't come up.
Yeah, right.
It would be how I would start every conversation.
He is a very low-key guy. He and I were talking, like, we're similar in this way that I feel like we're both the kind of guys who, if we show up at a place, like, we just want to sort of sneak in the room and slowly reveal our presence to people, sort of, as opposed to like walking into a room and being like, hey, let the party begin, we're here. That's not our style.
Andrew, let's do this. Let's take a quick momentary break that no one will even hear, unless someday we land that DraftKings account again. In which case we'll dynamically insert a commercial. But
insert the
not.
Duolingo commercial here.
I mean, we just kind of did one, honestly, without meaning to. And we'll fix echo cancellation. And then I would like to, on the other side, if I can, tell you about a high compliment that I received this morning. And then also my thoughts and reflections on the heavy metal show that I saw last night at the at Northwest Stadium here in D.C. Also, the fact that I might be an honorary Washington commander now. I can tell you about that as well. Maybe right after we do some dazzling donors.
We was hoping for some razzle-dazzle.
Razzle-dazzle.
That's right, man. Razzle-dazzle.
On your mark.
On your mark.
Get set.
Get set.
Now ready.
Ready. Go.
Everybody razzle dazzle.
All right, echo cancellation has been canceled, Andrew. That's the kind of cancel culture that I go in for.
Oh, man. Now Echo's been canceled.
Oh, geez. You can't echo anything anymore, man. People have literally no idea what we're talking about. There is a tiny setting in the software that we use to talk to each other remotely, and sometimes it defaults to this little thing that it thinks is helping, but it's not helping because we are radio professionals. Maybe some other lesser broadcast, podcast, recording, maybe they need the help of the Riverside program to cancel the echo, but we've got a whole system going on, and when that thing auto clicks on, it actually makes our recording worse. So
yeah, if sharp-eared listeners, and I do mean Vulcans, want to go back and listen to that first part of the show, you can hear it in these little moments where Luke and I talk over each other a little bit, when just a little bit of crosstalk. You'll
Did
hear
you know
Luke
I speak Vulcan? I've never even brought it up.
Greetings, spacefaring friend. I'm trying to think. I don't think that was that officially Vulcan, or was I just speaking
I don't
English?
Actually know if Vulcan is. To be honest with you, I think I've just really sent. I think I've really just sent some Star Trek fans into a real tailspin, because I think when I said I speak Vulcan, what I really meant to say was I speak Klingon because I think Klingon is the language that's been extensively. What do you call when you create a language? You know, I mean, it's been sort of developed into its own language that people can speak to each other. I don't know if Vulcan. Do they even have their own language, or are they just so hyper intelligent that they can adapt immediately? Can Vulcans just learn whatever language it's like? Are there scenes where Spock is saying things in Vulcan to James T. Kirk? I don't remember that, but also again, I don't know much about that show.
Yeah, I don't know. The internet definitely says that Vulcan is a fully built-out language, though, and there are plenty of places where you and I could learn how to speak Vulcan. Should we?
Well, then I nailed it.
Pursue that, yeah.
I have to say, I'm glad we fixed echo cancellation because Corey Diamond, our first Dazzling donor in Brookline, Massachusetts, deserves the highest fidelity of a TBTL broadcast because Corey has been supporting the show for years and years. Corey, of course, is donating a dazzling amount of dough once again, and it's making this whole show possible. Corey says, hey, dummies, my boss and I were in Seattle recently for a few days, and during the chit-chat, Maria Bamford callback right there, by the way.
And wait, that was in today's intro, wasn't it?
That was in today's intro, yes.
Also, and now I feel terrible, I was sort of dissing on the Diamond Club earlier, and that's Corey's family's business.
That is, yes. They've just been in their family for generations.
Oh my gosh,
you were
so
you were dissing
Corey.
the carving station of the Diamond.
I loved the dates.
Of the Corey Diamond Club family legacy.
The asparagus is to die for.
And during the chit chat before our many meetings, I casually mentioned the following topics. Corey, if I had my bell here, I'd be dinging along: Dick's Drive-In, Spiro's Pizza, Dory Monson, Seattle Garbage Pickup, and SARS Market Backpack Policy, and the Mandarin Gate.
Wow, it's all coming together today.
Corey, we have moved way on from the Mandarin Gate as a topic on this show.
Talk about the vibe now.
Get current. We don't talk about the Mandarin Gate anymore. Now it's a different shitty bar that's in the same physical location. Okay,
right.
This show is constantly evolving. And I came very close to saying the words culturally Edmonds.
Nice.
The people we met with were quite impressed with my local knowledge, but my boss was mystified. I love this for Corey, by the way. This is exactly the kind of thing that really kind of floats my boat, is when I'm able to be either maybe I'm just crossing paths with someone in the hotel lobby or the elevator or wherever, and I'm able to drop in some overly specific knowledge about the place where they might be from. Mm-hmm. That makes me very excited. That seems to me the kind of thing, Andrew, that would cause you to be concerned that in doing that, then they are going to request even more overly specific knowledge, and that's when the knowledge might run out.
Right. Oh, culturally Edmonds. Oh, that's interesting. Well, what do you think of Shoreline? Oh,
and then it's like, but see, that's I live a life without fear, and so I love just dropping. I love dropping knowledge on people, even though I have no follow-up information if they expand it.
I mean, Corey has to be careful, though, here, too, because, like, getting in, like, it gets more and more specific, and then it gets into specificity that we've made up. Like, culturally, Edmonds doesn't mean anything. So that's
dangerous.
You're kind of like, oh, yeah, you know where the Mandarin Gate used to be. That's interesting. Oh, and you know that the SARS has a strict backpack policy that is not evenly enforced these days. That's very specific. Culturally, Edmonds, we're going to have to ask you to get out of the car and walk the rest of the way.
You're blowing my mind here. Well, here's where this all led. At the end of the trip, Corey says that the locals were impressed, but his boss was mystified. At the end of the trip, he asked, when did you live in Seattle? I told him I never did, but I have some friends there. So I've picked up a lot of info over the years. What I didn't add was that my friends are you two, and that I've been listening to this podcast every day since 2012.
Wow.
This was another reminder of the way in which you two and the TENS community have become a big part of my life. So I'm happy to help keep it going. Thanks to you and to John for all you do, and keep up the great work. Corey, I appreciate so much all of your support over the years in various ways, and I think it was really smart that you didn't tell your boss that we are on a podcast. But that's not because you're not our friend. You are very much our friend. But he would have thought that he might have called for a mental wellness check. So yes, and we've said this before. Everyone out there listening is absolutely authorized to describe us to other people as your friends, and you do not have to clarify. You legally do not have to clarify that this is a podcast.
I did. Yeah, I think I've said this before, but I pulled that exact move one time because you know me, Luke. I am What's the opposite of a hooper? Somebody who's not into hoops. I am that.
Yes.
I'm a pooper. I need that coffee bad. But because I was listening to so much of the Levitard show, I want to say it might have even been like could have been the bubble year. I don't know,
gosh.
but I
forgot about that.
The Miami Heat. Now the podcast I was listening to like obsessively is out of Miami, as I talk about a lot on the show, and the Miami Heat were in the actual championship, I believe. I think the Lakers ended up winning whatever year I'm talking about. I feel like it was around the pandemic, but we were definitely out in public watching games, because I remember being at Teddy's and one of the basketball games was on, and I was sort of following along more than I ever have to any NBA game in my life, because I knew some of the players and I was kind of rooting for Miami.
Well, you're a Hassan Whiteside guy.
Actually, this might have been pre-Hassan. I think I could be wrong, or post. I don't know. I don't remember that being a name that popped up. But all I'm saying is, because I paid attention for like one hot month, and that was years ago. But somebody said we were talking a little bit, and I was actually holding up my end of a very, very shallow conversation about the game. Very shallow, very thin. But he did say, "Why do you root for Miami?" And I was just like, "Oh yeah, well my friends live there," or something like that, or my friends are really. I'm like, I don't really know anything about basketball. My friends are really into it, and then it's just like it's such a great, quick explanation, because you can really just stop the conversation in its tracks if you have to start saying, "Do you know this podcast?"
No, and it does, to a person who doesn't have that relationship with a podcast, they'll never get it. And we don't need to waste this one wild life that we have trying to explain why we're so connected to the people that we are so connected. That's why I always talk about my friend Howard with people, who's doing all kinds of things. I talk about how I have this friend Howard who does this really hilarious bit at parties called Fart Man.
For a second, I didn't realize what you were doing. I thought you were actually revealing that you do sometimes just make up a person as an easy explanation of things. I didn't realize we were talking specifically. It would be funny if your imaginary friend is the limo driver. What's his name?
Ronnie the limo driver? Ronnie Mund?
What if Ronnie was your imaginary friend? That would be even harder to slip into polite conversation. Oh, yeah, what is he up to?
Try to describe, man, he's out in Vegas, and he is going honestly wild for like a 75-year-old man. It's totally unhinged, but Stephanie lets him do it for some reason. Who knows? The weed makes him so horny, my friend Ronnie.
He's just going, and your boss is like, "How do you know so much about weed
Las
in
Vegas? How do you know so much about the Maverick helicopter company in Las Vegas?" Oh, a friend of mine is always posting Instagram photos of them. The other thing about that, and we really should move on to our next donor, but I will say, this sounds like I'm attempting a flex here, but I listen to the Howard Stern show a lot, and then I also listen to the Why Is This Happening podcast with Chris Hayes. And that one is where I get every talking point that might even sound 5% informed for me about the current state of politics or what have you, is always from that show. And I'll say, with that one, I could actually legitimately say, my friend Chris said this, because we're actually friends in real life. You know what I mean? I'm not even using the podcast exception there. I could, but I think, so I think that is kind of what I do. I might say, well, my friend Chris was talking about this thing the other day. They don't know that he was talking about it
publicly
on a podcast.
Else. He was talking to somebody else.
And that I was not involved in the conversation, that I was holding a glass up to the wall and listening through. But anyway, all that is to say, absolutely everybody is authorized to describe us as their friends to whoever they want to make this whole thing seem less weird. Whatever keeps this whole thing going is what I'm a fan of. So thanks again, Corey, for the support. Maestro.
On your mark. On your mark. Get set. Get set. Now ready. Ready. Go. Everybody rattle, dazzle.
It's our friend Andrew John out there in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Now, I love this pronouncer, because it is a tough name to say, but this pronouncer nails it.
Really helps. A lot of the pronouncers make it harder. This one makes it easier, and also you're featured in it.
That's why
actually,
I like it.
Everyone who works for TBTL except me is featured in this. Feel a little left out. Andrew John, it's pronounced what is said before Walsh. What is said before Walsh can never die, by the way, Andrew.
Yeah, that's what they always say. You pay the iron
if you're
price.
aware of that. So it's Andrew, like the thing we say before Walsh, and then it's followed by the thing that we say before Sklarov.
Right.
So it's Andrew John.
Andrew John.
Yeah. Andrew says, unlike other years where humor could be mined from Luke's long ago speculation that I might be a Trump supporter, current events mean the subject is too grim to be funny. In these times, TBTL has been both a distraction and a refuge. Despite the best efforts of the Three Biz Boys, sometimes it's not enough. Other hope inducers are rare. One I recommend is a 60 Minutes news story available on YouTube about a group of 30 high school musicians who were supposed to play with the Marine Band at the Kennedy Center. By the way, I jogged by the Kennedy Center today, and this is what I'm talking about. This is what is such a mind bleep about being here. Like, Kennedy Center has been the scene of so many amazing cultural moments over the years. And I literally had this thought. Now, one of the thoughts was it was a slight uphill to the Kennedy Center. There was a lot of steps from the angle I was at, and I was a little tired. But I was like, should I run by the Kennedy Center? Because I'm out there, I'm on the mall, so I'm kind of bobbing and weaving. I'm trying to avoid the tourists, and I'm trying to get back in touch with the great history of this nation. And I'm like, Kennedy Center? And then I'm like, it's a bad feeling zone for me right now. And that's not a reflection on any of the people who work there or perform there, but it's just like, it's a bummer.
Yeah.
It's tough out here. Andrew says the 60 Minutes special, or I should say segment probably, it's about a group of 30 high school musicians who were supposed to play with the Marine Band at the Kennedy Center through a program that supports musicians of color. The current administration canceled that program because it was DEI. So the students were denied that opportunity. Then a group of ex-military musicians formed an orchestra and invited the students to play with them, and 60 Minutes came to record and broadcast when Scott Pelley said, originally this would have been seen by hundreds, but tonight it will be heard by millions. I mean, Scott Pelley is basically all we have left.
I know.
Did you see the commencement speech that he gave
this
week?
No. I was just referring back to the conversation we had about what he said on 60 Minutes a month or two ago.
Yeah, right.
About
Talking
the merger
about the departure of their boss and everything.
So no, but it sounds like this is up my alley. Yeah, you're right. I feel like I'm putting a lot on his shoulders these days.
Yeah, protect Scott Pelley at all costs right now. Yeah, he was giving the commencement speech at a university, which the name of which escapes me at the moment. But it was just in typical Scott Pelley fashion. It was the thing about Scott Pelley is that he is not overwrought. And this isn't a criticism of how anybody processes the current political climate. People can be at whatever level of wrought they choose. I'm not policing how people respond. But there's something about the gravitas of a Scott Pelley and the way that he's not over describing things. He's just accurately describing them in a way that seems to be very, very powerful to me. And he was actually talking about DEI and the way that it's just been absolutely sort of the intention behind it and the words even have been absolutely mauled by the current political administration, the current presidential administration. Anyway, would recommend checking out Scott Pelley and his recent commencement speech, and would recommend thanking Andrew John for supporting the program for all these years. Thanks, Andrew. We really, really do appreciate you and hope you're bearing up okay out there in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You and the family, by the way. Congrats on your kid, too, getting into Boston University. Not too shabby.
Hello and welcome to Top Story.
I was coming back from grabbing some iced coffee today, Andrew. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm an iced coffee boy. I'm sorry to torture you, but I just have to report the facts of my life. And the facts of my life are, when I am on the East Coast, apparently, I transform into a totally different person. A person who really gets into iced coffee. It might also index with the mugginess of the East Coast versus the West Coast. There's something about like wanting a coffee, but also going like, it's a little on the warm side here for a hot coffee for me. But
I want to mention it was 85 degrees here midday yesterday. It was so nice. So it is pretty hot out there too?
Well, here's the thing. Yesterday was abysmal. I can't go into it because I'll be naming nuts for hours, but like the weather was so bad, I wondered if we were going to be able to do the film shoot yesterday. Meanwhile, in like Portland, Becca is updating me that it's 87 degrees, and I'm sure Seattle was just spectacular.
It was a beautiful day.
And I couldn't believe that I had traveled all the way across the country to stand in sideways rain at what felt to be like 46 degrees. Like we were trying to film in this parking lot with some students who had gotten their commercial driver's licenses, which were paid for by the band Metallica. And like the camera guy was like, I don't know if I can really shoot this because the rain is going to actually destroy my equipment.
Whoa.
Like it was, and there was something about it being really, I mean, I don't begrudge folks on the West Coast and the Northwest enjoying their weather, but there was something about just how different and bad the weather was that I was like, ugh. So this morning, not as bad, not raining, not particularly warm, but there's always, this time of year out here in DC, there's always just a little hint of mugginess in the air. So maybe that was why I was dreaming dreams of iced coffee. But anyway, I'm walking back to my room and noticed that the housekeeping cart is like one door over from my room. And I noticed that the woman doing the housekeeping is like bent over, kind of like fixing something with her cart or doing something with her cart. And she kind of turns to me and she says, "What room are you in?" And I said, "Oh, I'm in this room." And I said, I don't need any help, or I don't need any housekeeping today because I'm actually checking out later today. So I didn't need my room cleaned. And now here's the thing, and this is an overly specific detail, but I actually have the room through tonight. And the reason is because I need to record this with you. So like if I was just checking out of the room, there'd be no need for me to clarify I don't need the room cleaned because the room has to be cleaned for the next people. But in this case, there's the weird detail of like, I have possession of this room until tomorrow, technically, even though I'm not going to use it tonight. So thanks, CBS. But anyway, so I wanted to clarify to the person that I don't need her to come in and clean the room today. And so she said, okay. But then as she stood up to come over to me, and I realized, and I don't know why these details are important, and maybe they're not, but this woman doing the housekeeping was actually significantly older than a lot of the housekeeping folks that I've kind of just seen out and about in the halls of the many hotel rooms I've been in. And she also was significantly stooped over. And in fact, what I thought was her kind of doing something with the cart was just kind of where her posture's at this point in her life. And I will not lie that something kind of went through me that was like, wow, now there's a chance that this job, it gives this woman a real sense of purpose in her life, and she really loves it and loves her coworkers. She certainly seemed very outgoing. So I sort of don't want to like assume too much, but I also can't deny the fact that I had a thought of like, wow, man, seems like it could be a physically really demanding job for this person that I'm talking to,
Yeah, it makes a hard job harder.
That's kind of how it struck me, again, without putting too much of my own assumption on this person and their life. But so she was like, she said something, there was also a pretty strong kind of like language difference, which is like, how's my Hindi, by the way? So there you go. It's like this person's English was a little bit accented, a little bit hard for me to understand, but a lot better than the language that I would need to learn to speak to this person in their native language. And what she basically said to me was, okay, I need to, if you don't want me to clean the room, I need to make a call to the front desk from your hotel phone so they know that I've checked this room off, which I'd never heard that before. Have you ever heard anything like that?
No, I'm wondering if she's on a improvement plan of some sort.
It sounds like it might be a little pippy, a little performance improvement planning.
No, that's very that's strange. I've never heard of that. Of course not. I need to use the phone from your room.
It's kind of basically like, I think at this particular hotel, I guess they don't want the housekeeping staff just sort of deciding willy-nilly that a room doesn't need to be serviced. It's like you have to, I guess, it sounds like it's a very sort of like concrete way to sort of double check the truthfulness of the folks doing the housekeeping. Like, okay, well, you have to come in and dial from the phone in the room. You have to dial in a code. Literally, she punched in a code from my room from my phone next to my desk that then turned off something in the system that told them that it was okay for her to not clean the room.
So let me ask you a question, which, if the answer is what I think it is, it's a boring question. But is this the first show that you and I have been doing from that you've been doing from this hotel room? Because I swear that it is the third. So I heard you. It wasn't in the show because we cut it out, but in the middle of a conversation
yesterday's show.
Was it yesterday's show? Somebody knocked and you said not now, and they just moved on. They didn't type in any codes.
Well, my guess would be that they were going to come back or something. Like maybe they did when I was out of the room. That's a good. That is a good point. They did not come in and punch in. I've never had this experience before, which is why I was a little confused when this woman was trying to explain this to me. But I was like, okay, whatever, you know. And so she comes over because I've unlocked the door with my key card, and so I'm now opening the door, and now a moment of just absolute panic washes over me, Andrew, because this woman is kind of making her way over to my door, and she's going to push through the door and go into my room to call this system from my phone to then turn off whatever alert is like, you got to clean that room. And I realized that I have not prepared this hotel room for someone I don't know being in this hotel room. Mm-hmm. And like, not that there's anything weird going on in here, but it was a moment of like realizing like, no, I didn't sweep this room. Like, I don't know. I just don't know what the state of it is. Is the bed unmade in a way that is just kind of like looks very haphazard? Are there clothes
underwear
everywhere?
Hanging off of a lampshade?
I mean, well, that's one of the first things I do when I get into the room. So we know that for a fact will be the case. Mm-hmm. But like, I'm just like, whoa. I'm like, this is, had I, what's the state of affairs in the bathroom?
Yeah.
You
didn't know you were entertaining.
I didn't know I was entertaining. And it felt, for some reason, it felt like kind of deeply personal. But this woman was very undeterred, and she sort of goes past me. She pushes into the room, and she goes and she punches the code in on the phone, and I guess whatever she's supposed to do, it works. And she comes back by me, and she just goes, "You've been staying here for 3 or 4 days." I go, "Yeah." She goes, "This room is really clean."
Oh.
And then she leaves. And Andrew, when I tell you the absolute endorphin rush that coursed through my brain at having a total stranger who works in the housekeeping industry compliment me on the cleanliness of the hotel room that I did not stage for her, it made me feel like I am a person who is living a life of purpose or something. And I looked around and you know what I thought? I was like, yeah, this isn't that bad. Like the bed wasn't made, but it wasn't like a disaster. The bed was like, it was like you could tell someone had slept in it, but it wasn't like it wasn't like Animal from the Muppets slept in there. It was like, it was relatively in order. And then my clothes, my dirty clothes were all in the the little plastic bag you get out of the closet at the thing. They were, and they're next to my suitcase, which is on the suitcase rack, which had my clothes are still, I don't put my clothes on a trip like this. I don't put my clothes into the dresser, but they're all folded neatly. The clean clothes are folded neatly in my luggage. The dirty clothes are in a bag. There wasn't a bunch. I am glad that I threw it. I had last night. I was so hungry after the Metallica show that I got some like a falafel-y kind of a thing or whatever. Like I DoorDashed it, and I only ate a little bit of it. It was yummy, but it was like I ended up kind of full. I did bag that up and take it out with me this morning when I was on my way to get my iced coffee.
Yep.
So that really helped. Like there wasn't like half-consumed food everywhere, but like I looked around the room and I was like, you know what? This is not bad actually in here. And there was something about that woman, totally unprompted, complimenting me on it that just really made my day. So I just wanted to celebrate that W.
She didn't see the drifter in the bathtub. You had the door closed.
She was like, the ice machine is out of ice for some reason. And we saw on the camera you taking over 45 buckets of ice into the room, sir.
Are those dental tools? What are those? Wow, that's getting a little bit dark. I am also thinking, though, it could have been, and I know you don't really go in for this kind of stuff anymore, although you never really went in for super messy foods anyway, but like I remember specifically staying at a hotel in St. Paul for an extended period of time. It might have been, I think we spent like maybe a whole week, and then I ended up getting snowed in on the day my flight was supposed to take off, so I had to move to a different hotel and spend a night there. But I remember it was kind of a longish stay in the same room. I think there was housekeeping at that point, but I also remember getting some sort of messy food that involved barbecue sauce. And I don't mean barbecue sauce as a dipping sauce. I meant it had barbecue sauce on it, because I remember having that thing we talk about on the show sometimes where I'm making a mess with food and I don't have any paper towels. I don't have any napkins, and I'm just like using like white, like
towel
washcloths or whatever. Which I do believe they can get the stains out of those. I don't think you're ruining them forever, but like you really have to leave a pile of some just unbelievably unsightly linens for the housekeeping staff, and you honestly think, what if I just change my name and hit the road and nobody will ever find me again?
I have a system for that, by the way.
Yeah,
which is so. Because I've been through that many, many times. There's something kind of unsettling about just like sitting on a bed in a hotel room, just like mowing through some food that's getting everywhere and then wiping it with the towel because, again, they didn't send enough napkins or they're not up to the task. But what I will do with that towel then, or that washcloth or whatever it is I will then fold it neatly. And then I will place it within, like, let's say a towel that I used after the shower. And I will kind of fold both of those up and I will place it on, when I'm checking out of the room, I will place that neatly either on the countertop in the bathroom or maybe even on top of the toilet. So on the toilet tank. And I will close the toilet seat so it's not gross. And then any kind of used towel, I will sort of fold them up, but it's clear that they're used because they're sitting on top of the toilet tank. But my dream, my hope, and my prayer is that when the housekeeping folks take that pile of towels, they throw them as a group into the laundry basket, and then that is thrown into the giant industrial washers, and they never even get eyes.
That's what I think.
The thing in the middle of it all.
And no harm, no foul. Like if you're a kid or something and you find, you've done something similar to your parents' white washcloth or something, like the parents need eyes on that, because at home that needs some special treatment. You don't want to be hiding that. And I could be wrong about this. If we know anybody in the hospitality industry who can set me straight on this, well, maybe don't, because I'd like to be blissfully ignorant. But like, it seems to me like your system is perfect, because it's like, I think that if the staffer who's picking up the towels, like if they see that one is particularly kind of dirty, and not even, I was going to say gross, but it looks gross, but honestly, barbecue sauce, is that any grosser than the towel that you use to dry yourself after a shower? Maybe a little bit, but not significantly. It's not.
No,
it's
I would honestly, I'd rather deal with barbecue sauce than someone's butt crack.
Thank you. We needed a finer point on that, just like I do on my butt crack. But anyway, yeah. So you see what I'm saying? Like, if you and I are correct that these all get swept up and just thrown into some industrial thing anyway with a lot of bleach, and they all just kind of come out the other side, and we don't have one person whose job it is to go through and say, oh, well, this one needs treated and this one doesn't. Let's assume that our assumptions are correct. Well, then that's great. It just like saves everybody emotional agony.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I was heartened to realize that my system. The other thing that I'll do real quick, because I guess I'm just on a Luke Burbank is really great kind of tour of the country right now, and I just need to tell people more things about me that I do that are exemplary. No, but really, if I could encourage everyone, pick up any and all towels, and also the towel, the kind of, what do you call it? The mat. It's never a mat in a hotel room. It's just a towel that's meant to be on the floor outside of the shower. You know, what do you call that?
What do I call it? I call it.
It's not really a bath mat. It's just a bath towel or something.
Yeah, I think I do refer to it as the mat, because it fills that function. Like even here at home, like I have a set of towels that has like a couple of hand towels, couple of shower-sized towels, and then what I would call the bath mat.
I would just say, take 2 seconds when you're checking out of the room, pick all of those up. And just like I said, just give them a quick fold and just place them somewhere that does not involve the person who is coming into the room bending over and picking them up. Just like kind of nicely place them on a countertop that's at like, waist height or whatever, so that the person whose back is probably killing themselves of all day dealing with this stuff has one room where they don't have to get down on the floor and pick something up. Like, small thing, takes you 8 seconds and might make someone's day 3% better.
That's a great idea. I never thought about that. I always, only because my own tendencies are to keep things somewhat organized anyway, when I am finally leaving a hotel room, or if I'm just leaving, I guess, even for the day, and I have some wet towels or used towels, I do put them on the floor, but of course I don't scatter them around the hotel room. You know what I mean? I put them all in one place, so it's like you scoop it up. That's a good idea, though, if you put them, even like you said, on top of the toilet seat.
Yeah.
That's a little bit easier.
It's clear that these have been used. Like there's going to be no confusion.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good thought.
Now on to I told you, I'm now the king of iced coffee, which is one of my big big brand transformations, brand pivots, and everyone's talking about it. Another brand pivot for me, Andrew, is that I found myself enjoying watching Suicidal Tendencies and Pantera and certainly Metallica play last night at this stadium where the Washington, what are they called now? The Commanders, where the Washington Commanders also play. I was there, doing this TV story about Metallica, and I was kind of, I'll be honest with you, by the end of the day, it had been a very long day of shooting, kind of tired, and now we were being offered a chance to watch the concert more or less just as kind of a Benny, kind of as a, like, from the, the management of Metallica. They were like, hey, here are some wristbands, which would get us into this like suite where we could watch them, but also they gave us a band that would get us into something called the Snake Pit, which is like the way that Metallica stages. It's imagine a big donut. It's a big circle so that they can kind of move around and play towards every part of the stadium. But then in the middle of that circle are people standing there like fans, and it's called the Snake Pit, and you can stand in there. I did not take advantage of going into the Snake Pit, but I did watch them from up in this like kind of little luxury box, if you will, mostly because it meant I wasn't getting rained on, because it rained throughout the entire show. But first of all, the band Suicidal Tendencies has always just kind of lived in some part of my brain as being so much not for me, as you might imagine, just from the name and everything. They came out and played at, I want to say it was like 6 p.m., so it was still really light out. The stadium was very, very minimally full. Like, very few people had come in, just probably hardcore fans of that band that were kind of standing very close to the stage. It's raining a lot. It's just like, if I were the band Suicidal Tendencies, I'd be like, could we just wait on this and like maybe we don't play today or something? These dudes went out there and just went so hard and were so unfazed by the fact that there was, all of the bleachers were empty at this point because, people hadn't filled in, and none of the light show that Metallica was working. In fact, there was a few songs that I legitimately kind of liked. And there was something about the energy of the band, the fact that, so now I'm sitting there, this is my way of enjoying a band called Suicidal Tendencies. First of all, I put Suicidal Tendencies into my phone. I wanted to find out more about them. I wouldn't recommend doing that, Andrew. I immediately got, I didn't put in Suicidal Tendencies band. I just put in those first two words without even thinking about it. Immediately got a variety of phone numbers to call for help, which I was like, good job, internet. Like, you got this kind of figured out, at least for those words. Like, this is what should be happening, probably. Then I put in Suicidal Tendencies band. I didn't realize that the lead singer, Mike Muir, is like brothers with this guy that was in Dogtown and Z-Boys, the kind of skating collective from Southern Cal, and that, in fact, there's a big crossover between like that band and like just kind of early skateboarder guys. There was something about knowing there's a skateboarding connection that kind of made it more palatable to me for some reason, because I was really into skateboarding, and I think of those early days of like, I saw this picture of the lead singer of Suicidal Tendencies when he was like probably 17 years old, and he's on the cover of Thrasher magazine, and he's wearing like that kind of hat that he's always wearing that says suicidal. But I have to say, he looked really kind of cool to me. Like the 18-year-old version of this Mike Muir guy on Thrasher magazine in like 1982 or something. It's just kind of like a weird reorienting of this band in my brain. Now, am I going to start following them on the road? No. Am I going to listen to their music a lot? No. But they went from irredeemable in my mind to like, oh, I kind of get why somebody would vibe with this band.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. I think there's a lot of music. I mean, I think that I liked things that would tend to veer more towards noisy or just even loud or whatever in my life more than you have. But like, there are times, I mean, we were talking about Metallica. I don't know what prompted this, but I feel like a couple of years ago, maybe we were talking about Metallica on this show, or somebody else was talking about them. I'm just like, yeah, and I remember like leaving the grocery store in Roosevelt, and just like listening to Master of Puppets very loudly in my car, windows up, private moment, like windows up, hair down, just for me, and thinking like, oh yeah, like I remember like this moves me. Like I'm not somebody who would identify as a Metallica fan these days, and I mean people would look at me and assume I am one, but that's not how I would self-identify. But like you're just like,
don't judge a Walsh by his cover.
No, there's some, this music moves you, especially when it's done well. Now, I was going to say, like, it's almost like in the right context, almost any music could sound good, like whether it's live or you go to the other, you could say, I'm not a classical music person, but you go to the Hat Shell in Boston or something. I don't know, Hollywood Bowl, production or something, and it could suddenly be for you. I was going to say almost anything would sound good except for the song that was playing on the jukebox at the Vibe last night by somebody named New Breed, a part of Outlaw Nation, Welcome to My House. It's just like these two white, tatted up, like, looks like just the most, like, just... I don't know.
I'm essentially New is spelled N-U.
N-U Breed, and it's Outlaw Nation, and they have guns on the cover, and they're talking, this is my house. It's like somewhere between rap and country and hardcore. So I would say aside from, I was going to make a broad statement and say almost any music can sound good in the right context. I would say except for Welcome to My House by Outlaw Nation, Volume 2, featuring Jess and New Breed.
Well, thanks a lot. We're never going to book these guys on Livewire now.
I have nothing to do with that show. Maybe you guys will be more of a welcoming landing spot for them. But I would probably say in an editorial meeting, if you were to have them on TBTL, I would probably not have. I'll be there, but I don't know that I'd come with a lot of questions prepared.
Well, so I appreciated the commitment of the band Suicidal Tendencies to just playing and just going for it and not being kind of like bummed about the fact that they were opening and that the place was not at its capacity yet. Then Pantera came out, and the thing is, I don't know anything about that band. It's not really for me, but I will tell you that like in a certain point at some of the songs, there was like this, very driving guitar stuff, and I kind of got it too. Again, probably for me, out of the three, would have been in position number 3 in terms of like musically what I'm into. But it wasn't. It was not like it was without any redeeming value as far as being a thing people could get into, if that makes sense.
Of course.
And then it's like, now it's finally like I don't know, 9 o'clock, and it's gotten dark, and like it's time for Metallica to come out. And first of all, something really strange had happened, which was like I kept worrying for Metallica that because it was raining. And because of, I guess, how these concerts work, I just figured most of the people that were going to be there for the show would be there sitting in their seats or standing out on the infield of this stadium by like 8 p.m. But I guess not, because at 8 p.m. it was still sparse. And I was like, oh, bad look for this band. And by the time that Metallica was about to go on, the thing had friggin' filled up. And it was like people were everywhere, and they were hyped. And I guess the song, I was standing next to their manager, so he was explaining this all to me. He was like, first, you're going to hear the AC/DC song, It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll, which they just play over the like loudspeakers, just the actual recording, which gets the crowd all excited. And they're just showing these pictures of all the like Metallica fans basically over the years, which is making the crowd have a good feeling. And then he goes, and then the Morricone song, I think it's from... I forget which old, kind of like Mexican movie it's from, but it's, the Modelo, the song that's now in all the Modelo ads.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, whatever that song is.
Yeah, I used to know the name of it because it is in all those commercials and it's so frequently used. I'm blanking on it now.
So I guess for like years, Metallica has been, that's like that song they come out to is that song, and I guess it's Morricone, the famous, sort of soundtrack composer. But I didn't realize like it's associated with a particular moment in whatever this film is. I think kind of one of these, like they would call them spaghetti westerns or whatever.
Yeah, I'm quite sure that's from one of the Man with No Name movies, like the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series. I would stake a lot on that.
So this guy in the video, or in the clip from the film, which I've never seen the film. It made me want to go watch the movie, by the way. This guy is in a graveyard and he's just like running around. He's running from something. He's kind of stumbling around. But first of all, it was just like, what a cool ass film. Just like holy shit. And then this music is so cool. And all of a sudden I become retroactively so stoked that I am like have been hanging out substantially with the guys from Metallica, because I've never been to one of their concerts. I've never seen them doing their thing. I have just seen them in like various backstage rooms. This also sounds like what a sad humble brag. I don't mean it this way, but there was a point yesterday. This is how much I've now spent time talking to James Hetfield, the main guy. I'm like talking to some other people like in the Metallica, whatever, the Metallica industrial complex. I'm just standing backstage at this stadium and I'm talking to some people, and I just look over and Hetfield is walking somewhere and he's just fist bumping me. And I'm not trying to talk to him. I'm not trying to interact with him. Like, I'm like, that was an interesting moment. Like I did not make this happen. Now, do I think that was the highlight of his evening? No. Do I think he remembers it? Absolutely not. But the fact that we're on some level on a fist bumping relationship now, was like, it was a weird experience for me in that moment. And then later when the crowd is getting so excited and this cool ass video is playing, and then all of a sudden they appear on the stage and they just start playing so fast and so loud, and it was so badass. And I was like, I was just talking to these guys. Like, I felt this weird rush of just basically like, I don't know what you'd call it, excitement by association or something. And then also just an intense appreciation for how good these guys are at their job. Like, their job is to friggin' rock the faces of everyone in that stadium off. And they absolutely proceeded to do that. Like, their musicianship is really pretty incredible. They're just like, they know exactly what they are doing, which again, none of this should be a surprise, but I've never seen them do this before. I know them just to the degree that I know them as these kind of like overly sweet kind of rocker dudes that I've just been seeing in a totally different context. So it was a really a surprisingly fun night to be there.
Yeah, that's the thing about Metallica too. It's like, it's not, even if you don't like, loud music or that style of music, like, you can't argue that it's not precise. Like, you listen to any of those records, it's not, I mean, and I like some stuff that is like very notably non-precise and noisy and weird and experimental, but that is not what they do. Like, what they do on every record is very, very, very tight, right? It's a very tight sound.
Incredible. Like, one of the thoughts I had was like, I was like worried for Lars Ulrich, the drummer, because I was like, this is too much drumming for a guy this age.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
like,
he gets AARP magazine, like, he does.
100%. And he would tell you that. I mean, he is a guy who I've had a few interactions with, weirdly. Like, he was on Wait, Don't Tell Me when we were doing it in San Francisco. The first time I met him, he was very nice. Again, because I'm not a Metallica head, I was not cowed by these guys. So I had met him there and we had a nice conversation. And then I had talked to him extensively when I was in San Rafael, because we're at the Metallica place and they're just like they're just hanging out. You're just bullshitting with them. And he's like a very thoughtful dude. And he was talking about the physicality of doing the job. And he was like, yeah, I really have to kind of like get back up to speed. And I was like, yeah, all right. No. All right, Gramps, it's not that hard. And then I saw him doing it last night. I was like, this is insane. Mm-hmm. This guy is making this noise with these drums in this, like, I don't know, what do you call it? Time signature? Like, how is this even happening? Like, I was like, they need to put this guy in a full hyperbaric chamber every night. They need to get him some nano bubbles or something. Like, it was an impressive athletic feat what he was doing. And then, yeah, because the other thing was the bass player is a guy named Robert Trujillo. And again, when I was talking to him for the TV story, he was like talking about how like he gets really nervous before the shows because he doesn't want to mess stuff up. And I was like thinking, like, how would you've done this so long? And he was like, yeah, but I was like, why are you guys here rehearsing? Like, what is there to rehearse for? He's like, oh, no, we have to like really like learn this stuff again and make sure we really know it, because it's like really complicated. And I get nervous that I'm going to like forget it or mess it up. And again, I understood that intellectually talking to him. But then last night I was like, oh, yeah, no, this makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Like, you got to really like know what you're doing with this stuff.
By the way, only for people who are desperately writing into us, the song that you're talking about is no, we didn't get anything wrong, but just to put a tag on it, The Ecstasy of Gold, of course, is
exactly the song.
Morricone, and it is The Good, and the Bad, and the Ugly. Yeah.
It's in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Yeah, I may watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly this weekend, because again, and maybe it was just that particular moment. Maybe it's just a good movie to watch a clip of when 40,000 people are losing their minds. with the anticipation about a rock band. But like, I was like, how have I not watched this movie in its entirety before? I mean, I think Clint Eastwood is in that, right? Is that
well, that's the one thing that kind of like
he's the thing that ruins it.
Now, like kind of retroactively, I don't know. I mean, I want to be careful here in the same way that I'd be careful pretending like I'm a big Orioles fan, and then you would ask me follow-up questions about it. But I really did truly love that trilogy. In fact, I would say, and I'm digging back in the recesses of my brain here, and I don't want to mislead, but everybody knows The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I do not remember thinking that was the best one of the trilogy. I would actually start with the first one, A Fistful of Dollars. They are a bit slow, and they have that kind of grainy quality to them, but they're artistically shot. Like, I remember, I'm pretty sure maybe the second one, For a Few Dollars More, was my favorite, because I remember buying that one on DVD. That might have been one of the earliest DVDs I bought, because I was like, I want this movie. And it's like, and so I would maybe start with the second one, but like, they are kind of slow, and they almost feel like art movies at sometimes because they are so slow. But then they kind of get slow to a point where they almost grind to a halt. It's like, how many? We're just going to watch like this bandit chew on his cigar in more and more intense close-up scenes or whatever. But no, they are definitely a vibe. It kind of bums me out how I feel so negatively, now about Clint Eastwood and
because of Gran Torino.
No, just his politics, and I just think that he's probably a pretty. I mean, listen, I know that it was a pathetic moment in politics with the whole empty chair thing that he did at the RNC.
Was that the RNC where he did that?
Yeah, like that was the RNC. And again, I don't even like whatever. You can have different political opinions. He hasn't. I haven't heard him weigh in on specifically MAGA stuff, but I think he's always been pretty. Like, I just think that he and and not just like hey, you want smaller government? Okay, we can find some common ground there. I would guess that he's pretty retrograde in a lot of his opinions of the world.
Really? You think at 99 he's not however old he is? Well, yeah, that's a good point. I guess you mean the guy who played Dirty Harry, who said, "Do you feel lucky, punk?"
Yeah,
to some kind of a probably a person of color who's like supposedly marauding or whatever.
But didn't we play it on this show? Boy, this is going to be tough. Everybody buckle up for Andrew trying to free associate celebrities. But I'm pretty sure
this is my favorite kind of jazz.
It's like a cosmic gumbo of confusion and hungoverness and lack of coffee. But Gran Torino, I think, is the movie where, and I learned this through like an SNL bit that was charming and I would say sort of sui generis in its sort of format, which was, it was Weekend Update, and was it just like Andy Samberg, and it wasn't Andy Samberg, it was two buddies who were like real life comedian friends on Weekend Update, and they were just giving a joint commentary about the way Clint Eastwood worked not one but two menage a trois scenes into his latest movie, and he's in his 80s.
And I know I keep saying this off air and on air, but was it possibly Mulaney?
I think it might have been. It was Mulaney and not Samberg, but somebody else.
Oh, Pete Davidson. Wasn't
Pete
it Mulaney and Davidson?
Yes. And they were buddies, and they just like, it was so clear that they were just riffing at one point, like, can you believe this old man who writes his own movies and has all the power of Hollywood just like, I'm going to write 2 three-way scenes, 2 menage a trois scenes with me in them because, I'm 85 years old and this is how I can like kind of wield my power these days. My virility, exactly. And they were just like, I mean, if I can find this. So we think it was Mulaney and Davidson.
By the way, if I ever put out a heavy metal album, it'll be called Alleged Virility.
Yeah, Alleged Virility. Yeah,
Alleged Virility.
This is back from 2019. Is it? I mean, am I getting us too off track? If we just
no. This is good. I'm ready to transition to the Blurs days. So let's play this, and then we'll move on.
Okay, sounds good. I am. I'm going to fast forward through this to the point on YouTube where it looks like most people started watching this. So they're introduced by, is it Colin Jost? No. Who's the white? Is he the white guy? Colin Jost?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I think he introduced
Michael Che's the other guy.
Okay, yeah.
And then Colin Jost.
Here we go. Take a listen.
Sometimes it looks like I'm Pete's lawyer.
Yeah. People usually
really think he's like an NBA coach, and I'm like the controversial rookie.
I'm stalling so I can get further into this, by the way. They're talking about the movie The Mule, though, not Gran Torino.
Okay.
So that's on me. Let me see if I can get closer to the good stuff.
So in The Mule, Clint stars as Earl, a wildly popular botanist.
Flower man.
Yeah. Who, after falling on hard times, is hired as a drug mule.
At age 90.
90 by a Mexican drug cartel.
Run by Andy Garcia.
Who was rude to me at a Laker game once.
I remember that.
Love that.
This is true.
Love this so much.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood drives hundreds of kilos of drugs across the United States.
And that's not the weird part.
The weird part is that he is 90 and he is driving.
He is 90. When my grandma turned 90, we bribed the DMV to flunk her on her driving test, and they did it.
Yeah. Why aren't you guys freaking out? He's old, okay? There's a scene where he's driving with, like, no hands, and he's, like, unwrapping an ice cream sandwich. He's, like, singing jazz and stuff. It's insane.
That's when we realized this was a superhero movie for old people about a guy whose superpower is that he can drive unsupervised.
Yeah, and he's like so good that the head of the drug cartel, played by Andy Garcia,
who was rude to me at a Laker game once.
Yes, I remember that. It's true. He throws the mule a party for being their best driver ever.
Fulfilling another elderly grandpa fantasy that a 90-year-old white man can do any job better than a Mexican, even when the job is Mexican drug trafficking.
Yeah. Oh, we also forgot to mention, 90-year-old Clint Eastwood has 2 threesomes in this movie.
And he directed it.
2! You guys understand. I've had one. I guess you probably have none, right?
You are correct, sir.
Right.
According to the mule, I have a solid 54 years before that window closes.
Wow.
So look out in 2072 for my wish fulfillment movie, The Mule-Laney.
so
Was
good.
that entire thing? Do you think that entire riff was because somebody thought of the Mulaney? Was it all reverse engineered from the Mulaney? Because that's pretty funny.
I feel like these two were just like talking about that movie and just, God, I just love the way. And I mean, clearly this is like very well scripted, and they know where they're going to kind of jump in and finish each other's sandwiches. But I just love.
See, you're back, baby.
I'm back. I just love. I mean, you just feel the friendship like emanating off of these guys. I love that so much.
Absolutely. It's also very interesting because I'm guessing this is after Mulaney had done his stint in rehab.
Yes, he was saying like.
So that was kind of the big, his, a sober life and all of that. Also, Andrew, it's a Thursday, which means it's the day after the last Everybody's Live with John Mulaney, which I couldn't watch last night because I was heavy metal rocking. But when I get home tonight, back to the Madrona Hill studio, my big plan, I think, is to watch John Mulaney fight 3 14-year-olds. So maybe we can talk about that on the show tomorrow.
Big weeknight.
Yes, sir.
There's a right way to rock and a wrong way to roll. You can just listen to your soul. Just remember that life is number one. You can be having so much fun. Just remember that life is much fun. You can be number one.
All right, Luke, relatively short Blur's Day segment today, but a special one. I mean, they're all so special. If you want to wish somebody a happy birthday, happy Blur's Day, email me, andrew@tbtl.net, put Blur's Day in the subject line. We got this one that says, Happy Blur's Day to Nancy from Megan. May your day be filled with iced instant Java. Oh, maybe you could be into that, Luke. Cheers to another year bonding over some of our favorite TBTL topics, which are cat talk, garbage anxiety, and hard 75. Ish. I was waiting for you to finish that, Mulaney
Andrew,
style.
as I always say, it is ish.
All right, and then we have a special Blur's Day coming from inside the fam, Luke. This is
Wait a
from
minute.
your sister Hannah saying happy Blursday to my sister Sarah Joy. She's the funniest, most appropriately inappropriate person I know, and also one of the most genuinely kind. I love you, sis. That's from Hannah. And I know that you also wanted to, I'm not just covering for you here. I know that you also wanted to wish Sarah a happy Blursday today, Luke.
Well, yeah, but see, Hannah stole my thunder there in a certain way, because can you reread what Hannah said to our sister Sarah over the air? Because it's almost exactly what I said to our sister on the Hawk Squad today.
Oh, really? Okay, so happy Blursday to my sister Sarah Joy. She's the funniest, most appropriately inappropriate person I know. My favorite sibling by a long shot, and also one of the most genuinely kind. I love you, sis.
I wrote this morning, happy birthday, Serzi. You fill every family get-together with love and sweetness and wildly inappropriate jokes that are frankly a bad example for the children in the room. What we do without you.
I see the inappropriate thing. I feel like, no, this is just the brand is strong with Sarah.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the brand is just really strong, because I'm just wondering if, like, Hannah incepted me in some way and went in and, like, stole what I was going to write this morning on the Hawk Squad and then wrote it in an email like days ago and sent it to you as a Blursday.
Oh, let's see. Or when did you... Yeah, stole it days ago, because I was going to say, when did this come in? We could really sleuth this. Oh, you know what? This is going to be a kind of a race to the wire. This email from your sister, and I love the fact that I'm taking this to such a negative competitive place.
No, I'm the one. I'm the one that needs answers.
Hannah sent this in at 7:24 a.m. this morning on
Are
the
you
day
kidding
of Sarah's
me?
Blurs. What time did your text go
Wait
out? I need to know.
Second.
7:24 a.m. from Hannah.
West Coast?
West Coast, my time, 7:24 a.m.
Oh my God, Andrew. We have a full-on crime on our hands.
Did you send that at 7:22?
7:21. You know what the timestamp? 7:21 West Coast is when I sent my message to the Hawk Squad.
Are you serious?
Andrew, I would never lie to you about this. 7:21, I sent a message to everyone, including my former sister, Hannah. 3 minutes later, she's emailing the Blursdays with almost word for word my message and stealing that valor.
Wow.
Not today, honey. Not today.
Well, this is really, truly in the spirit of the Blursday segment.
It sure is.
I think we really did some really good work here. We have torn a family asunder.
Happy Blursday, Serzi. Love you.
Indeed.
All right. Okay, you know what? I was going to say we should wrap things up because I've got to rush to my flight. But, Andrew, great news. Flight delayed.
Oh.
So, a flight delayed is a flight denied. So, who knows when I'm going to get home tonight.
Oh, geez.
But hopefully it'll be sometime.
Okay, is it because of that bad weather you were talking about?
I don't think so. I think the weather's okay now. I think it's just what's going on with the general situation with the airlines. It turns out you put a guy who was on The Real World in charge of it. True story. And you stop spending on training and other things, and things get a little tough out there for the airline situation. But all that is to say, ideally we'll be back home tonight at the Madrona Hill studio at some point, and we'll be joining you all from there tomorrow morning when we bring you the Friday edition of TBTL. So we're hoping that you'll be able to make some time for that. In the meantime, have a great Thursday, everybody, and please remember, no mountain too tall.
And good luck to all.
Power out.